Hi guys, welcome back to the live reading of Chasing Christmas. I'm DK Daniels, and I'm a YA author who writes LGBTQ um, fiction. And this is the fourth or fifth night. I think it's the fifth night now that we've been doing this, and so far we've had good results. So if you feel like dropping anything to say inside the comments panel there, you're more than welcome, and I'll try answer whatever I can before the night's over. I know it's probably going to be a bit difficult with folks turning up this evening because it's a Sunday evening going into a Monday, so um, some folks might have work, so we'll see how it goes. But I won't dilly dally too long on the intro and whatnot because well, I want to get kind of into it. But before that, I'll just share a bit of a recap and the what's coming up. Considering the sixth chapter, I think, the sixth chapter of Chasing Christmas, we'll probably end up making it a double. So it'll probably turn out a little bit more on the long side, considering chapter 7 is a little bit longer. Um, but anyway, as I was saying, um, I'm also running a giveaway competition of Chasing Christmas. So if you're interested in grabbing a copy of the book that's signed by me, I'm giving out a copy, two or three copies of it, and all you have to do is sign up to my mailing list, and you'll be picked from a random lottery. And the deadline for that is the 10th of December, so I can make the international shipping deadline. But yeah, other than that, I'll try get straight into the recap. So in the last chapter, Noah and Lucas took up residence in front of a TV in Noah's bedroom, where they end up playing 7 Days to Die, and that is until the twins decide to come searching and poke and prodding them, annoying them basically. And now they needed a group activity, so the boys don their bobble hats and scarves and whatnot, and they head out to the backyard for a snowball fight, which ended up being a very long chapter now that I think about it. But um, looking back, I had a lot of fun writing that chapter. And in the next two chapters coming up, it's kind of a, more of a slow burner. So before we enter the actual main story, so coming up, the boys are going to head inside and warm up after the snowball fight. So with cold red fingers pressed to radiators and the family chowing down for lunch, it's more slow. So, and then this is also when Noah Finch really realizes what Christmas is all about, and he realizes that it's when everyone you love is happy, well, and grateful all in the same place. And after that, the boys decide to brace themselves for the elements again. And after a bit of a disagreement with the parents, they're finally given permission to head um, out into the street, and they track to Jack Hart's house, which is Noah's best friend, to deliver a present. And so, yeah, we'll wait for a few minutes to make sure everybody has come in. And yeah, but I've already been in the Christmas spirit for a good while now. Most people probably aren't, but I've been in the Christmas spirit for a good 2 or 3 weeks now because I've had to put up my mother's Christmas tree, and then also I wanted to have this Christmas tree up in the background for when I was doing this. So yeah, everything has been kind of um, moving along a lot quicker than I originally thought. And I'm not hugely big on Christmas. I love Christmas, don't get me wrong, but Halloween is my go-to holiday. But yeah, I've been even getting into the whole vibe of when I was wrapping Christmas presents yesterday. I decided to make my own little labels and stuff for um, the presents that I'm giving out to folks, and now all I have to do is kind of cut them out and make them. Yeah, pretty much the glorified label maker now at this rate. But yeah, so with the gift tags pretty much done already, I'm pretty much already kind of wrapped every Christmas present for all of my family in advance. But I also apologize in advance for the shitty um image quality. It probably looks like a potato after the live stream is actually air or streamed or whatever it is. But here in Ireland, we have one of the worst internet services in the world, definitely in Europe anyway, I tell you that much. And the upload speed is horrendous, so you might get some delays in audio or picture quality. I can't exactly make it any better because, yeah, you'd be shocked at the amount we pay for the internet here, and you don't even have a decent service. But that's just the way it is. But yeah. How is folks wherever you are in the world today? How is your day going? Are you just looking forward to Monday? I know most people are not, but I'm just curious. While we wait for a few more minutes to make sure folks are kind of, in. But yeah. Um, it's so funny. I've been out walking my dog every single day the last week, and we got her a new like Christmas, like, well, not a Christmas jacket, but like those dog things like what horses wear. I can't remember. It's like a dog coat. Um, but we got her one of those, and it's all fur lined and that and everything, and she absolutely loves it. But I just can't stop laughing every time we put it on her because um, she looks like an Eskimo, basically. And she has a little hood on it, and every time I see it, you can barely see her head because she has the hood. And I keep telling my mother and that and everything, maybe we should put the hood down so she can actually see everything. But she seems to be happy to have the hood up. But well, that's good to know that the quality is decent. You should see around the actual computer and that and everything. There's wires running everywhere. I'm trying to make the light better as well, and I'm trying to experiment. Um, I guess I could share a picture or something like that on Instagram of my little setup. It's not anyway perfect, but I think it's working ish. Um, yeah, I'm basically have to rearrange my bedroom every evening to throw this on at the moment. It probably would have made more sense if I did it in my office, but I don't have a Christmas tree in my office, and it just felt a little bit more homely here because I sit in here when I'm gaming and playing, watching movies and whatnot. So this is where I spend most of my time outside of the office. So this is where it's getting set up. Um, but anyway, I think we'll probably make a start here now. Any second now, just get a second. Yeah. But yeah, so with chapter 6 now, we'll be moving on now. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, okay, so I'll kick off the reading, and you can let me know how it's going. If you have any questions, do be a little bit more vocal there. I won't bite, I promise. Um, yeah, it's just always, I mean, very difficult when to come up with stuff to talk about when there's no other really human um talking. So I encourage talking. So yeah, do reach out about anything, and I'll try my best to answer it. Okay, so going on to chapter 6, which is page 118 in the book, if you have the book counterpart. The hustle and bustle of everyone converging around the table filled my ears as soon as the door shut. The sound of cutlery clanking and crockery chinking, along with stupid, contorted laughs of the family behind me, made me smile without having a particular reason to smile. It's one of those warm feelings you get inside your chest, knowing everyone is inside conversing about the year gone by, and the smell of food is lazily floating about in the air, waiting to be eaten. I love this time. It's my favorite season of the year. Everything from mom just has to be perfect. The food, the lights, the decorations, the atmosphere, and this all contributes to the much larger picture. It really does make my Christmas feel magical. Since I learned that Santa is not real, it is the joy and love of seeing the people you love that makes the magic of Christmas resurface. Nothing beats seeing my young cousins tear open a present on Christmas morning and seeing the childlike wonder light up in their eyes because they still believe. Something about that makes me smile. Unzipping my jacket, I turned round to the source of the noise. If one didn't know, they'd presume that our breakfast table and kitchen counter were deli, or worse, Subway. Ah, okay, Subway is not that bad. It's their slogan that annoys me. It's too bro like. Eat fresh, I contemplated in a manly upstairs voice. Yeah, now if they could only get Arnold Schwarzenegger to say that, then it would be really dude like. The warmness of the recently cooked food sterilized the kitchen in a warm glow, present and felt against my the warm glow present and felt against my many layers of outer clothing. Unhitching my jacket, I flopped over the armrest of the chair in the corner, and with that I sauntered to where everyone had gravitated, discussing the festive and friendly exchange. The twins had taken their place beside Aunt Annie, and Lucas beside his mom, and tipped her on the shoulder. Before you could get a word out, the soft tonality of her voice mellowed throughout the room. There's my munchkin, Annie said, playfully. Raising her left arm to Lucas's jaw, she cupped his chin with her fingers and gave a little playful squeeze on the cheek. This is my oldest boy, Lucas, Aunt Annie proudly said, clutching onto her son. She pulled him closer to her side. Mom, Lucas grumbled, the way he does when he's not impressed by the turn of events. Lucas hates when she does that. When will the fireworks go off? Hush now, Annie said. Annie knows no boundaries. My aunt is a fun-loving woman, a no-shit kind of gal. She just smothers you in love and expects that you return the favor, which is great, I imagine. I can't believe I actually think that it's cool, I guess. Lucas doesn't want to be seen being babied by his mom. After all, he is a big boy. Okay. That sounded wrong somehow. Lucas is all grown up. Perhaps he just wants the babying to stop. Maybe he doesn't want to be embarrassed with people around he doesn't know. But Aunt Annie has always been that sort of person. Actually, on the contrary, Mom is quite like her. The both of them are a joyful and family orientated bunch. I think they just wanted to give us a better experience at growing up than they ever got when they were kids. It's gotten to the point that they have sort of spoiled us a little too much, if I must say. Though that doesn't mean I am not grateful. I'm thankful for everything I own, and I'm immensely appreciative for the family I have. I've never changed. I'd never change it, and I definitely wouldn't want to piss Krampus off. Grandma told me about him before. I never actually heard of him before then. I guess the representation of being a lousy kid at Christmas made sense. If the child got coal, why would Santa carry a fossil fuel? Krampus carries coal, amongst other devices. As quick as I am to judge, I know Santa is not real. Saint Nick was, but Krampus, I'm a little unsure about that. I'm not afraid, I'm just a little curious, or maybe a little absent minded to either not believe nor believe. So, with that, I'll only assume the guy exists until I can prove otherwise. Apparently, from what my grandma told me, Krampus is a scary looking half demon, half goat form really with really big hooves and horns on his head. His primary mission is to relinquish misbehaving children throughout the Christmas season. Come to think of it, where the heck is my grandma? She's not at the table, and neither is my dad. Is that where my father went? To pick up my grandmother? Possibly. They're caught up in traffic. I hear traffic is a nightmare to get out of in the city during Christmas Eve, so many late shoppers, I presume. Countering a nervous smile with Lucas' embarrassment, I cocked my head up to the ceiling and let out a chuckle before ambling ahead. Dropping my hat on the countertop beside the table, I plugged into one of the gaps by the boys, competing for space at the spread. Elijah encircled the table and made his way to his parents. Suzanne automatically stretched up and stroked the underside of Elijah's chin while he stood over her. You boys having fun? My mom questioned, realizing I'm standing before. Beside her, I glanced down at her in the chair and nodded my head in acknowledgement. A second later, Ben pulled off his gloves beside me, pushed through, and waved his hand out in front of us from a small crevice between my mom and me. His little fingers were all red and a greenish white. They looked cold and wet, if anything. I, re- I can recall because my hands have been like that before. Last year, I wore a pair of cheap gloves while building a snowman. The outcome led to frozen fingers. Yeah, it's getting cold out, though. I can barely feel my fingers anymore, Ben added. My cousin seemed uncomfortable from the exposure to the cold, and now his little body was paying for it. My mom latched onto his fingers and started rubbing them between her much larger palms. Oh, honey, your fingers are frozen, Mom said consolingly. She tried to add some friction to her motion to warm up his tiny fingers. A moment later, she raised both their hands upward to her mouth and blew out some hot air to his cupped hands before performing the same action again. Why did you let yourself get that cold? Mom said. Ben mumbled faintly or to her response. Turning my attention back to the table, my brother Thomas did not seem to be present, and it's just Elijah's parents, my mom, and Lucas folks gathered around. They are talking about how Lucas and I got up to so much mischief the year prior. I think Elijah's parents found it comical. Standing here, I'm feeling a little bashful, listening to my biggest fuck ups in the family being used in a conversation for entertainment. Though Lucas didn't seem to care about the matter. In fact, he added to it. Uncle Andy recalled a moment and spoke out over Lucas, cutting him off. He immediately apologized but continued talking. Lucas rolled his eyes, yet cracked a grin in my direction. Do you remember the time when the bo- oh sorry? Do you remember the time the boys found their way into your makeup, Abigail, and dressed up like two working girls? Uncle Andy said energetically. I shifted my attention to Mom to case her reaction. As with everyone at the seating arrangement, they laughed. Elijah, on the other end, peered across the table to me, shyly, doe eyed even. Andy is obviously referring to the time Lucas and me dressed up in drag. I swear it wasn't anything funny, it was just curiousness. The clothes my mom possessed were too pretty to pass up. I prepared Lucas's makeup and he did mine. Since then, we never really talk about it all that too much, but it was embarrassing for me. I never allowed it to be brought up like in a general debate. Now it's the highlight of my life. Uncle Andy just blurted it out in front of the boy I like and his parents. How are they ever going to take me seriously? Guessing from the way they are smiling pleasantly at me, they are already having second thoughts about letting their golden child hang out with us. Lucas and I mean, Lucas didn't seem to be all that fussed over the gossip, and as if to prove it, he leaned over his mom and clutched an apple that was in the fruit bowl in the center of the table. Raising it to his mouth, he took a chunk out of it. The familiar crush slash tearing sound escaped Lucas's mouth after he bit into the apple and directed his attention to his dad. I think from the way I'm presenting myself that I must look a bit uncomfortable or not pleased with my uncle. And he said, Oh, sorry, I didn't think I was supposed to say that, except you passed that. You're older now, boys, but that was a great laugh. Andy raised his hand to his eye and wiped away a tear from laughter that came loose. When everyone started to chuckle, I wanted to die from resentment forever for dressing up like a girl. I'm happy as a boy who likes boys. I'm not angry or embarrassed. It's like taking a pat on the shoulder, saying, Have a good day at work. To be honest, I wish we could do it again. What with the laugh? There were many fun times. I miss this, the family getting together. Even though it's only been a year, it makes my heart feel whole, full of love for all the people I love and from being loved. Love is perceived in two ways, I presume. You have the love when you desire someone emotionally and sexually, though there is a deep rooted love, a weakness that makes your breath feel weightless, your chest drowning in proudness, and a series of little tingles that electrify through your body. It spreads to your fingers and makes your toes dance in your shoes as you feel your stomach heave upwards and your eyes become slightly blurry. Why? Well, of course, it's the beauty of unconditional love, which makes you believe like you belong. Humbly watching everyone get on makes the pleasant scene unfolding in front of my eyes in a way in a way unique that I cannot quite explain. Stepping away from the table, Elijah unfastened his jacket, as well as Ben, and the both of them awkwardly stumbled out in front of each other's paths and actually laughed that they couldn't get by each other. Elijah gripped the two of Ben's shoulders and spun him in the opposite direction. March, Elijah joked, to which all the adults, even me, began to chuckle. Mom cut in again and said, "Place your hands on the radiator, sweetie. It'll warm them up." All the kids in the room looked at the radiator and then back to one another. Before we knew it, a huge scuffle occurred as we all tried desperately to flock to the source of heat. Brushing past the smaller kids and shimmying into the small space at the end of the table right next to Elijah, Ben then fumbled down onto my right and pushed me into Elijah. Placing my hands on top of the radiator to stop me from losing my balance, my hands stomped down on top of Elijah's hand, immediately blurting out sorry in a breathless way. I thought, flip's sake, I hope I didn't hurt him. But he seemed to be just fine because a moment later he bashfully smiled and said, "It's all right." Since everyone at this point is crowded in around the only heat source in the room, I decided to slump a small bit and enjoy the sensation against my numb hands. Both hands occasionally brushed off Ben's and Elijah's fingers, though I love Lucas's way of thinking. He went to the far radiator beside the archway. Lucas has a whole heater to himself. I can't be bothered about moving, but the sensation of the numbing warmness upon my wet, defrosting fingers added to the great impression of warmth. Standing side by side for a couple of minutes until we warmed up, eventually the two twins stepped away from the heater, leaving Elijah and me standing side by side. The sweltering spread from the radiator scalded the rear of my legs, yet continued to cook my fingers. Swiveling my head to Lucas, everyone is paying attention to what the adults are doing. I can't turn down the opportunity to look at Elijah. Considering our hands are essentially touching, the next step is going to be holding hands and then making out in the bedroom and then, right, if that would ever happen. My legs begin to seem flimsy with the risque imagery buzzing around my mind. Lunging away from the radiator, I leave Elijah standing by himself. Some time passed afterward as we traded gossips and story. The twins magically undressed down to their t-shirts and Lucas doffed his gillet. The twins didn't resemble Lucas in any way. The boy's shade of hair is slightly darker, almost brown. Green eyes, sitting around over the petite head. Consistent of soft, fleshy pink lips and protruding ears, it almost appears as if the boy's ears could begin flapping and he'd fly away like Dumbo. Okay, so just give me a second. Just grab myself a drink. So that's the end of chapter 6 there. Told you it was a short chapter. If you're actively watching there, don't be afraid to say hi. So, hi. But yeah. Okay, so okay, so give me a second there now. Okay, oh, that's a mighty chapter. Okay, so we'll try to tackle this. So we're going on to chapter 7 now. Hey, Ethan, you're back again. Thanks. You're breaking records. Okay, so 10 minutes passed, The oven bell triggered, and Mom shot up out of her seat and ran to get the food. I'm getting fed twice today. What's up with that? After failing to eat all my breakfast earlier, I'm a little hungry. Floating toward the arch, I leaned on the edge of the counter, next to the archway, and followed Mom's every movement. A hungry boy has needs. As Mom cracks opened the oven door, a key rattled in the lock of her front door. Darting my head out into the foyer, it swung open, and in came a bright, energetic new wave of life. A white haired woman, known as my grandma, came flooding up the hallway and into the kitchen. My dad followed afterward with a suitcase and plopped it down by the front door and then shut it. Since I'm the nearest to the arch, Grandma latched onto me and pulled me into a hug. Wrapping my arms around her, I squeezed back. I settled into her small, delicate frame and took in her heavenly perfume fragrance. Before I can think of what was what, I became trapped between Grandma and Lucas, who clung to my back. The two twins settled for each side. At this point, I decided to contemplate screw it. Letting myself melt into my grandmother, the boys practically hung out of my grandmother and me. I'm actually holding her up. Her balance is not the best, though all the external force from the boys makes me feel a little off balance wise too. Aunt Annie announced from the table, Jesus, don't stampede her, boys. Breaking away from Grandma, she had room. We stood back. Hey, Mom, my mother said, pitching in to give her mom a kiss on the cheek. Lightly, they both brushed faces, exchanged affection. A second later, my mom leaned into Grandma and pulled her into a warm and festive hug. She wrapped her arms snugly around her shoulder and rubbed her back gently. Grandma did the same. Lucas piped up, glancing back at his mother. We're not, he said. His mother just gave a coy smile, knowing that Lucas was probably just excited to see his grandmother. It has, after all, been a year since we last saw her. Grandma lives about 40 minutes from here, considering that she lives on her sorry. Considering that she likes her own space, we tend to stay at a bay and check in with her from time to time. It has only been my parents who have been driving up and down to her. I think she went a little bit funny after Granddad died, and she didn't want lots of attention drawn to the matter. So I guess she asked, could the grandchildren be kept away, or maybe our moms just did it so we wouldn't have to overwhelm her. Needless to say, I missed her too. Grandma broke the hug with my mom and looked over at us with an affectionate smile. The warm and tender one. The kind of smile you give someone when you're proud of how far they've come. Ah, they're all right, she said lovingly. Come to think of it, we have done a lot of growing up in the last year. I almost grew an inch, too, so I guess she is shocked that I have gotten so big. If I must say, I'm happy with the growth spurt. What more could I ask for? I'm the average height of all the boys in my grade. I have some pubes down below, and I'm somewhat popular. Yeah, I guess I can say that when the first hair sprouted, I had no idea what it was. I did hear stories of how the guys got hair. Then the art of manscaping braced to the surface. Shaving all of it off? The idea of being smoothed down there seemed weird to even think about cutting the hairs off. I've struggled so long to make them grow. Why would I want to cut them off? Mom cut in on the conversation and asked Grandma, did you eat, Mom, or take any of your medication this morning? I'm about to serve up a late breakfast, more like lunch. Grandma was about to answer the question when Aunt Annie overrode the conversation and blurted in jokingly, of course she did. She's been on the old fogies bus since 1979. I felt my cheeks beginning to list and smile at that statement. I didn't have the faintest clue as to what she meant exactly, but I got the best hint that Annie just said that her mom is getting old. Something about that was actually funny, and with the time it all fit together. Actually, on the contrary, it's not hard to see where Lucas got his sense of humour. Lucas and his mother are almost identical in that way. Her sense of humour is very dry and blunt, and well, so is Lucas. But the funny part about it all is that it's funny regardless of the situation. I heard that Annie, Grandma grumpily offered. Lucas and the twins sniggered beside me, and in the corner of the room over by the table, Elijah started to smile at the exchange of a dysfunctional family's interaction. Our family is weird, but at least the main thing is that everyone is in good spirit. I think light slagging or stick, as Grandad used to call it, is what is needed for such occasions at the holiday season. When else do you get to make a mockery out of people who won't as easily get offended? The holidays and family is the best time to hone your skills. Aunt Annie turned her profile outward from the table with a cup of coffee in her hand and stated smugly, smiling at us for a reaction. I know, mother, she said. Grandma immediately started freeing her jacket and began to undo her vintage scarf and take her swath beige jacket off. Mom took it and headed out into the hall to presumably put it in the closet or on the newel post, while Grandma headed for the table to sit down. It's dreadful outside. The snow is turning to glass, Grandma mumbled to herself more than anything. You know how old people can be. They murmur what they are saying, and you just nod your head and pretend and hope that you got what they were saying. If they were asking you to do something, you just hope that they are doing the right thing. You, you if you were asking if they were asking you to do something, you just hope that you are doing the right thing they asked you. Oh, and yes, dear, I did eat something. I ate before Mark came to pick me up, she said with a hint of sarcasm to Aunt Annie as she neared the table. My Aunt Annie pulled up a chair beside her for Grandma to sit down on. Annie did so too, abruptly plopping, abruptly plopping moments later. My aunt put the coffee cup on the table and leaned into Grandma for a hug. Dad finished taking off his coat and he came into the kitchen, ruffled my hair, and started a conversation with the adults. Yeah, the highway had a traffic jam all the way up to I 190. All the way up to a junction on 94 beside Albany Park, Dad said. Dad dropped his hands to his stomach to give each of the two boys a high five. First, Ben walloped his palm down to my dad's, and Dad pretended that it hurt, and then he went to Adam, who did the same. My dad let out a breath of pain as an indicator of the stinging pain from the slap to his hands. Then he came to Lucas, who held his hand up to his chest, readying for a crushing blow. Go on, big guy, Dad said to boost his ego. Just like that, Lucas clasped down onto my dad's palm, and my dad let out a shriek that made the two twins jump more than anything. Lucas wasn't expecting him to do that, and his eyes widened for a moment, and he drew back in fear before letting out a chuckle. I grinned. Ah, second time today, Lucas groaned to himself. Mom arrived back from the foyer and said, I see maybe that's why you took quite a bit to get back. Mom leaned into Dad, arched up on her tippy toes, and gave him a peck on the lips. As she stepped away, he smiled and started over toward the kitchen table. Yeah, I should have avoided the airport altogether, Dad admitted solemnly. Well, what's done is done, she said. It was just to conclude the topic of discussion. I don't think you can do anything about the traffic on Christmas Eve. Besides, Dad didn't have anywhere else to go. Everyone is here and accounted for. Maybe I could persuade him to drive the lot of us over to Jack's or into town. That's what dads are for, right? Dad won't let me freeze to Dad won't let me freeze to a painful death walking in the snow, especially on Christmas Eve. If I am sweet about it, he's just got to help out, right? Dad and my uncle and aunt both hugged. He then made his way across the table and started preparing the plates for brunch to help out my mom. Lucas took a seat on the chair in the corner of the kitchen overlooking the entire family, and the twins returned to warm their hands by the radiator. I took a seat beside Elijah, and before we knew it, the breakfast was served up for the second time this morning. Everyone dug in. The twins ate standing, and every so often they would reach to the edge of the table where their plates of food were housed and took more food. Lucas sat slumped in the chair and ate his breakfast off of his lap. Nothing but the scraping of forks and knives against the cutlery could be heard, and for the first time since everyone arrived, nobody spoke. The silence was golden while everyone bulked up on the tasty food to fill their stomachs. I can't help but sneak glances at Elijah, sitting next to me. He is actually eating, and that's great to see. Earlier, he refused to eat, and I was a little concerned, but he seemed to be in a happier mood than beforehand. I partially think it is because I have pulled him into the middle of all the attention. Again, come to think of it, even if you did feel sad, I don't think you'd have a chance to feel sad in this family, especially at Christmas time. I have heard that Christmas is a wrong time to be sad. I can I can understand why. Nothing could be more stabbing at your gut than looking at so many people all happy at once. Though maybe I should stop looking at Elijah for a minute, which is a shame, of course. I should bring up the topic about us getting a lift off Dad. Thinking how to word it, I decided I would keep it brief and to the point. I don't exactly want to tell him why I want to go to town, not that I have anything to hide. I have a present to give to Jack, and well, if Elijah is here for for the Christmas holidays, then I'm going to have to try and get him something, right? Bravely, I glanced up from my plate and breathed under my breath. Dad, is it okay if you drive us into town after lunch? I asked. All the adult heads shot up to me, except Grandma, who kept cutting the bacon on her plate before stuffing it into her mouth. Something about the way she cut the meat and then shoved it in her mouth made me think about a comedy where an old woman's teeth fall out at dinner. Or was it on YouTube? I can't remember, but I found myself trying not to crack up. Town? Dad asked, surprised. Mom just gave me a skeptical face, and I felt vulnerable. All the faces of the adults were directed at me, even though I had nothing to worry about. Elijah, who was beside me, just kept digging into the grub, and he didn't pay any heed to what I was talking about, or at least going to attempt to say. Assuring myself that everyone would be good if I just stick to the truth and be nice about it. Uh, yeah, I couldn't think of what to say. My mind went blank for no apparent reason, and that's when Lucas cut in like he always somehow manages to do from the corner of the room. Yeah, we're going to go on a little adventure for a bit, Lucas said, which, to be honest, didn't sound convincing at all, but nonetheless, he'd gotten the attention of the room, and all the adults turned to look at him. Ben reached in for more food and clumsily grazed the plate, and everyone turned to look at him. Sorry, he said. Before everyone turned back to Lucas, Ben sort of crept back up to his standing position, embarrassed. You do know that most of the stores are closing soon, right? Dad asked. Boys, the roads are beginning to get worse. Why do you want to go out? And Annie asked questionably. Well, I still have to give Jack his present, and I don't want to go alone. The guys don't mind coming along either, I gently added. I thought you already gave it to him, Mom said, with a slight exhale of frustration. Lucas clasped his two hands together on the armrests of the chair in the corner of the kitchen and pushed himself to his feet. Sauntering from the chair, he made his way over to the table and stood behind his mother. I've been meaning to, I said. Just then, Grandma piped in from across the table, and all the heads that were facing my direction changed course and glanced toward my grandmother. Sweetie, just let the boys head out. It's obvious they want to go, Grandma said to my mother. Mom just glanced at Grandma and gave her a quizzical expression. I think from the way Mom is looking at her, she didn't even have to say anything else about what she is contemplating. My mom didn't want us to go out. I mean, I guess she would be worried about us since the roads are almost like ice. Yes, but it's still fine. Well, there's no snow falling on us at the moment. It's supposed to snow later on, so I guess that adds to the overall concern for Mom. I can kind of understand why Mom is concerned about letting us out. If if there is going to be worsening conditions and the sidewalks and the roads are dangerous now, then guess going out is even more so a danger. What if we got stranded out there? Mom wouldn't be able to pick us up because Dad will be snowed in somewhere. That's if we receive the amount of snowfall predicted, however. Mom glanced at Grandma, following to Dad. Doing a sweep of the entire left side of the table, Mom was hoping actually that anyone would speak up on our behalf. I think she was secretly hoping that Aunt Annie would say something. Somehow she would come to our rescue and side with Mom on the issue. Annie didn't precisely pipe up, as Mom expected she would. She glanced back to me, her expression intensified. Mom said, I don't think it's a good idea, honey. I'm sorry. And then she turned to Grandma and said, Mom, it's not safe out on the roads, and the conditions are worsening. I think the boys are better off staying here in the front or the backyard, and waiting for the snow to subside. Ben noisily interrupted from the side of the table, nearly knocking his plate of food from the table. Can you imagine that? Yeah, sure. Ben has always been one clumsy kid. Ben said, We'll be safe. I don't think it exactly helped our situation. As a matter of fact, it sounded worse, almost as if we were incapable of protecting ourselves or staying safe. I hate when small kids destroy an opportune moment. They just swipe in and say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Everything comes piling down like a ton of bricks. There goes the master plan and whatever else we just built up for that small freak to waltz in and kill the moment. Okay, that's terrible. He's not a freak. I guess when you look at it this way, Lucas has his reasons to annoy his brothers because, well, they just get in your face. At this point, Lucas moved from behind his mother at the kitchen table and crossed in on Ben. And as always, Lucas delivers something crude and unexpected. Lifting his arm a tad bit, he jabbed into Ben's stomach. It is one of those secret intentions like, shut the fuck up, you're ruining it for everyone. I think for the most part, Lucas meant well, but his antics were never something to be desired. If anything, I think his mother became more and more frustrated with him every single day when he did something on the spur of the moment. Like how you would like to be jabbed. Like how would you like to be jabbed on the side of the stomach from your older brother? I guess that is something that does happen to little brothers, but still, Lucas seems to be the master of it. Lucas's mother looked up from the table, over in the direction of her son. She gave him a cynical expression, as if asking him why he did that. Lucas, Annie lambasted. Ben immediately smirked a little too much in protest. He was still a little hurt that his brother had jabbed him in the stomach over a statement that he was trying somehow to exceedingly help us with. Lucas knew no morals. All that Lucas could contemplate was that his brother should shut up. He's ruining the moment. And if he succeeded in the moment, we will never get out of the house. Just like the countless times before, and presumably the abundance of mishaps to follow, Lucas's approach to the predicament had faltered somehow, and he offered up sorry to his little brother. The two of them bumped fists with each other, and miraculously, the situation had already mended itself without the need for any brutal meltdowns on either of the boys' behalfs. Lucas glanced back at his mom for a sign of acceptance on his behalf for apologizing. And Annie somehow dismissed the fact her son had just punched my cousin in the stomach. Somehow, she accepted that the boys had made up, though something told me from the way Lucas's eyes lingered on his mother for a moment before dropping to the table. He regretted his action, suggesting that he tried desperately to fit into something he was not accustomed to. His shoulder let down, and he didn't look so tense as he'd been moments ago. Concluding that everything had finished with the two boys, my dad spoke up and he said, "Boys, I'm not going to be doing any more driving. The roads are getting worse. You're going to have to walk." Not really thinking about anything other than how cold my feet would be with the numbing cold pressing against the underside of my shoes as I trudged from one location to the other. Seriously, Dad is not going to drive me to Jack's, then into town? How selfish. Plus, why did he have to say it now, when Elijah is here? Shifting my attention to Elijah, he held his attention to the plate of food in front of him. Even when he does nothing, it is still cute. Elijah does zilch, yet he's still adorable. Is this a sign of higher power or something? Because I'm legitimately confused down here. As if the confusion of Elijah is not enough, now my dad is not willing to help me out on Christmas Eve. I thought Christmas Eve is supposed to be about showing love. I want to give Jack his present, and if I have time, I want to try and get something small for Mr. Adorable over there. But I can't do something in secret without having to spell something out. With persistence, I give Dad the puppy dog eyes. Please, it'll take forever just to walk it. You can do it like in 5 minutes if you just drive us. I don't even know why I'm trying because I secretly know deep down that my dad is going to have to, of course, shoot down the idea. He has to be on Mom's side, of course. And well, this is Mom we're talking about, so if he disagrees with her, that doesn't sit right. Mom will be in her moods for most of the Christmas holidays if he agrees with me. Mom is not a moaner. She's not moody. She's just overprotective when it comes to dangerous things or things in general. When she says no, she means no. Anyone who agrees otherwise better hit the road. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a lot of silent treatment, which I think is by far worse of all the things that anybody can do. The quiet treatment is like love's ugly sister. It's not fair on the other person. How are you supposed to know what you've done or what to do to try and fix it if the other person is not bothering to talk? As if to make things better, Dad offered up, "It's only 3 or 4 blocks at most to Jack's house and then another couple into town. You can easily walk, Noah," he said. I think something in the way he said it was I think I think something in the way he said it was he was implying. Okay. Yes, implying that I could go out, but he didn't want Mom to be on his back, but he wasn't willing to drive us, so walking is the only way of leaving the house, and I guess it's evident that I'm going to be walking now. Still, I am not prepared to back down just yet, so I decided to give it another try. But Dad, our feet will be frozen by the time we get to Jack's. Then stay in, Jack said. Where did that come from? I've no idea. It almost sounded like he is starting to get a little bit frustrated with me. Fine, I said bitterly. I'll just wear my snow boots. I decided that it was not worth pursuing the subject any further, so everyone continued to eat the breakfast Mom made for us. The table grew quiet. The only thing that could be heard occasionally is the chinking of glasses and the metal scraping from the cutlery off the crockery. When I finished, I decided that I'd go and change my shoes. Waiting until the guys were finished at the table, Ben, Elijah, and Lucas all left with me, and we climbed the stairs together. Pushing in my bedroom door, I went straight to the wardrobe, looking for my snow boots. Lucas asked, "So, are we still going?" Turning around to Lucas as I fumbled toward the wardrobe, I opened the door. I began to rummage through it. "I'm still going whether they like it or not," I offered. Hunkering down and resting against the open door, I sprang into action, drawing out a pair of shoes one by one to locate what I needed. The further into the cavity I explored, the more impatient I grew. Yeah, they had to be right at the very back, didn't they? Removing all the shoes, I finally got to the very last layer. Clenching onto the boots, I plucked them out and then piled all the rest back in disorderly. Taking a seat on the bed, Lucas observed me with an amused expression. Shifting my balance unhealthily to my right leg, I ditched my current shoes on the floor, one, then the other. Lucas asked, "So, how far is it?" With a thud, both shoes fell to the ground. Contemplating exactly how far Jack's house is from here, I concluded that it was about 4 blocks minimum, like Dad said. Elijah looked over at me nervously and asked, "Who's Jack?" Yeah, I guess he wouldn't know who Jack is. Jack Hart. He's my best friend. He goes to our school. Maybe you know him, or maybe you don't, I said. I was trying to be modest, of course, because Jack is, of course, my best friend, and I don't want to make it appear as if he is any weirder than I am, because he is most definitely weirder. Actually, come to think of it, he is kind of like Lucas in a sense, but not as brutal. Stuffing the chunky left snow boot onto my left foot, I offered Lucas an answer to his question. Oh, page is not turning. Okay, there we go. I don't know, about a mile or two in total, including the walk to Jack's and then to the mall, I said. Tying the shoes, the bedroom door flung open with a noisy plump, and two twins came gallivanting in. I swear, I have no idea how the door has managed to stay on its hinges. Every Christmas, the twins burst in the door and it hits off the wall or whatever is behind it, and it never manages to break anything. Isn't that funny? In an animated, out of breath kind of way, Ben asked urgently, "When are we leaving?" Ben already had his jacket back on, shoes tied, and his glove snugly cloaking his tiny and scrawny fingers, while in addition Adam had his beanie on again and an unzipped jacket. Like a Siamese twin, like like a Siamese twin, as both of them are actually like Siamese twins, Adam coughed up, "How long do we have to walk for?" Smugly, Lucas offered up 3 hours, right? Lucas got up off the bed and made the small distance to me, patting on patting on my shoulder as if to go along with him. I thought it would be amusing to mislead the twins, so with that I stuffed my tied laces into the side of my boots, springing up too quickly. I stumbled backward, becoming a little lightheaded, and into the wardrobe. The two younger boys giggled, and that eventually led to everyone giggling. Getting back up from my slumped position, I looked at the two twins and said, "Yeah, it's about 3 hours, plus some minutes," I offered teasingly. Elijah saw straight through our joke, of course. He's gotta know because he lives in town. So yeah, really? Adam asked innocently. In the meantime, Elijah did find the funny side in what we were doing. He gave a bit of a sneaky grin, which I have to say is like hot or sexy, if that's not too much to say. "They're pulling your leg. It's only about a 20-minute walk," Elijah gravelly said. The grin slash smile disappeared from his face, and all evidence of the teasing forever lost its appeal. As quick as it came, it went away. The funny side to the joke was no more, and Elijah retreated back to his hardened, shy shell, or to wherever it is he's been hiding since he arrived. Adam glanced at Elijah and then back to Lucas and me standing by the wardrobe. Adam gave an annoying frown at the both of us before folding his arms in protest. He pouted his lips a tiny bit and then murmured, "Hmm." Lucas draped his arm loosely over his shoulder, pulled me into a chummy sort of buddy hug. He asked, "So, what's the plan? Again?" Everyone in the room reverted back to their usual selves, though the high spirits lingered. However, I think everyone is getting the drift of what Lucas is really like. Well, mainly Elijah is getting to know what Lucas is like. To be honest, I think I'm going to get a bit jealous. Lucas is stealing the limelight from me. I want to show Elijah who I am and how cool I can be, so that he would like to hang out with me, maybe after Christmas or whenever he has to go home. Lucas, though, seems to be so much cooler than me. Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, and as bad as I feel even to think it, I'm starting to get sick of him hogging all the attention. Nobody else ever gets a chance or a look in when he's around. Lucas eats up everybody's energy. Motioning for everyone to follow along, I started for the door. Leaving Lucas and passing the twins and Elijah beside the door, they naturally followed. Trampling down the stairs, I said, "We're going to walk to Jack's so I can give him his present. Then we can go to the mall, maybe eat something, and then browse the game before starting home." "That's it," Ben said as the group of us descended the stairs, making a dreadful amount of noise, as most teenage boys are bound to do. Though who can complain about video games? They're like the best creation since a bed and a pillow. Smugly reaching the end of the stairs, I asked Ben, "Well, if you have any suggestions, be sure to let me know." The weird silence all the boys gave and a funny bemused look Ben offered answered everything. When Ben didn't say anything after a couple of seconds, I offered sarcastically, "I thought so." Heading back into the kitchen, the two twins stood in the hallway, while me and Lucas and Elijah all funneled through into the kitchen, plucked up all our coats and put them back on, before reversing and heading for the front door. Mom got up, travelled on ahead of us. I slipped into the living room, rummaged beneath the huge Christmas tree in search of Jack's gift. Latching onto it, I marched back out into the hallway. Motioning for me to come over, Mom held out my hat. Taking it from her, "Wrap up warmly," Mom told me. In doing so, I tugged the cap on over my head. Swinging around, Lucas held his iPhone in his hand. "Hey, did anyone see the YouTube Rewind video yet?" Lucas inquired. My cousin wasn't exactly just talking to me, but he was looking at me. I just shrugged my shoulders because I hadn't seen it yet. I'm going to get around to it eventually, I guess, just like everything. Elijah, who was resting against the side of the counter by the archway in the kitchen, said, "Yeah, I saw it at the start of the month. It's cool." Almost instantaneously, both of the boys just broke into a conversation that I had no knowledge of, and the two of them seemed to be actually conversing. It's funny how Lucas can just somehow get on with people he hardly even knows, but yeah, the both of them pushed forward into the conversation that I didn't know. Lucas boasted his interests in the YouTube video to Elijah. Lucas start Lucas said energetically, "The coolest part is when the guy with the fidget spinner plays with the spinner and the train plows straight through the heap of snow beside him." I'm really jealous right now because Elijah just chuckled at something that Lucas said. I said that where me and I wish that me and him were giggling with, not Lucas. Ugh, sigh. Elijah has become so wrapped up in the discussion on hand. "Yeah, it's like he can rewind time," Elijah said as he slapped his hand. Why didn't I see the obvious metaphor in the video until now? He is using the fidget spinner to rewind time and fast forward. I'm an idiot. Personally, I'm a little saddened that I heard Elijah say that. He's not an idiot. I guess everyone has those days where they think they know something about something, but then it didn't make sense because it wasn't as apparent the first time until someone points it out. Lucas blushed for a moment. He turned a small pale concoction of red. Lucas said, "I guess that makes the both of us." He chuckled. "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? I'm going to be stuck with Lucas and Elijah through the entire Christmas holiday. Lucas is going to get on even better than I'm going to get on with Elijah. I haven't known Elijah all that long, but I fucking saw Elijah first, deciding that enough was enough. I don't want to end up in the middle of a little charade or whatever it is Lucas is playing at. I scoffed out, I'm ready if everyone else is. I got a nod from Elijah and from Lucas, and all three of us decided to funnel toward the door. And Annie stopped in front of the twins. She started fixing their hats and making sure their coats were zipped up as far as the zip could go. Mom fiddled with my beanie and made sure it was down and covering my ears. Brushing her hands away, she reluctantly withdrew her fingers from my head. Mom figured out she was getting into my personal space a little too much. I think she knew I didn't mean it, and I knew she meant well. Though I can't have any of that baby shit. Be careful, boys, Mom said aloud. Stay on the sidewalks and don't walk on the roads, she added. Holding out my wallet, I took it from her and put it into my jacket. Mom started for the door, and just like Lucas, I started for the door, and just like always, Lucas had to come up with some snide remark. He said, does the grass verge on either side of the sidewalk count, or, uh, Lucas stammered, snow on either side of the pathway? Okay. To walk on? Two? And Annie looked up from the twins, who she was dressed up, who had, and Annie looked up from the two twins, who she had dressed up like Eskimos at this point, but she said, don't be a smart aleck. She gave him another frown, and my mom opened the door. The chill from the outside world immediately flooded in. I haven't even set foot outside the door, and I can feel it on my legs. It's going to be a cold one, I decided. Lucas didn't offer anything back to his mom. He knew better. He didn't say anything about it any further. So he just counted his blessings and kept quiet, but that's all Lucas. Lucas took the first step outside the door, followed by the twins, who rushed out the entrance as if their life depended on it. Elijah went back into the kitchen to say goodbye to his parents, and while we were waiting for Elijah, my mom asked, what time will you guys be back at? I recalled what we were going to do. I'd say at least 2 or 3 hours. So, in doing so, I said, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 hours. When Elijah came back out into the hallway, he gestured that he was ready. Heading out the door into the garden, the cold from the outside world began to cloak me. A blue haze centered around my eyes and offered this really pale, callous colour to the world around me. It's almost as if the only source of colour was indeed all white, white as far as the eye could see. As I backed down the driveway, I veered back to my mom. Mom, called out, well, let me know what time you'll be back at. Giving her a response, I took Jack's present under my arm and dug into my pocket. Pulling out my phone, I waved it in the air, indicating that I would call her to let her know the time we would be home at. Turning back to the boys, we trudged through the snow of what was left of the pathway, down to the gate post at the end of the driveway. Ben took off on a wild one around the yard, running lap upon lap in the snow, leaving nothing but imprints of his small feet in the snow. He began screaming frantically as a joke, and Lucas turned back and shouted back to his mother, Mom, Ben left the sidewalk, and everyone sniggered at the joke. When Lucas didn't get a response from his mother at the door, I glanced around and saw my mom and Annie were both joyfully conversing. They were probably acknowledging how nutty each of us is, as if saying, our boys are mental, just look at them. You hear that? Lucas offered as an amplifier. Teasingly, I decided to embrace the joke, and I offered Lucas a what aloud. Exactly, nothing, Lucas then said. With that, we all slipped through the small crack in the gate and turned left onto the sidewalk. I just somehow knew that if we managed to get the jacks without one of us falling or another joke being cracked, and without something miraculously bad happening to us, I knew that journey will probably forever be life changing. trudging up the sidewalk, my left, trudging up the sidewalk, we left my street behind and in high spirits. We marched onward under the many lifeless skeletons of trees en route and heading for Jack's. Okay. So we've made it up to chapter 8, so that's 150 pages in. We're making good timing, actually. um, you don't realize reading out how dry your throat actually gets. But yeah, so I think I'll call it there, because if I read any more, I think it'll go on a bit too long. But yeah, when I wrote that scene, I did a lot of research in Chicago. I'm not too sure when I get back around to editing this book. I'm not too sure whether, as everybody might know, I've every book since I've written, since I started to build my metaverse and that everything has been included in um my Wyndon universe, or whatever you want to call it, because I have three distinct regions. I have the temperate region, then I also have the, the more tropical region, and then you have the boreal kind of region, whatever you want to call it. um but since I started having everything in one place, with like New Haven and St. Clement and all these little cities and towns, every single one of my books has been slowly brought over into this world, and I've tried to make everything interconnect and whatnot. Like in the future, I plan to write a detective series, and I've also introduced a detective in my book How I Live Now, called Detective Wheeler, and he's going to end up eventually becoming the protagonist in my detective thing eventually, when I get around to it. But I'm trying to interconnect everything, even the worlds. But this is the only story that I haven't actually brought over. It's set in Winnetket, I think. Winnetket, in Chicago, the original neighborhood where Home Alone was actually shot. Supposedly, a lot of it was shot there in Winnetket, or wherever. I don't know how you say it. I think it's called Winnetket. Um, but yeah, I remember looking up a lot of different streets and dropping down on Street View and then everything. I'm going around all the streets just to get a feel for it, and I really like just went to town on creating that world and that and everything. And I've been trying to decide whether I should actually move when I do this book up, whether I should move the location of Chicago into my fictional world. But I'm kind of pushed to just leave it in Chicago. um which, ironically, when I started off, I wrote of many different cities that I've never been in, and um, one of the things is that some people notice little inconsistencies. But no matter how many hours of research I tried to do for that particular region, and one of the ideas was creating a fictional world as well. There can't be any inconsistency as such, because I made the bloody place up. So that was the idea. But yeah, just so you know, it was inspired by Home Alone. Well, the neighborhood where the film takes place. But yeah, that's that. Um, but yeah, the reading is going great. I think. I hope everybody is still enjoying it. I mean, I can't believe we are like literally halfway through the book now at this rate. We probably might end up finishing it a lot sooner, before the 22nd, if I'm going at this rate. Um, but let me know if you have any ideas. What do you think I should do if I finish the book a little bit earlier than the said 22nd? Um, but yeah, that's about that. I won't ramble on too long, unless anybody has anything to say to me, or you just want me to stay on a little bit longer. I'll try find something to talk about. Not, what I mean. but you'll probably help me out. But Hamish and Eggsy here, they have been whispering in my ear all evening, and they're saying, you know, they're getting tired and cold there, so we got to take them in and put them beside the radiator, and let them warm up a bit. Got to close the blind down and whatnot, um, and call it a quits for the evening. But yeah, so yeah, if you don't know already about my giveaway for the book, just make sure you're on my mailing list. Again, um, I'm giving away the signed copies of the book, and it's the closing date is the 10th of December. And if it's not too much trouble, it would really help me as an author if you've bought a physical version, an ebook version, or a paperback version of Chasing Christmas. If you could take like a minute extra out of your day to just rate the book, honestly, what you thought of the book on Goodreads and Amazon, it really does help me in terms of ranking, like to get higher up so that more people will see my books, and um, you know what I mean, so that I can basically sustain myself better as an author, and it also makes people feel a little bit more comfortable buying some of my work if it's the first time. And also, it's a great motivation for me to keep writing. You know what I mean, just seeing whether people, what I mean, love my book. It's nice when people leave a review where what I mean, they say they love the book and the romance or whatever it is, or the fast paced ride of the thriller. um to me, it's really nice when people, what I mean, really get into the moment when they're reading one of my books. But it means so much more to me as well when I make somebody cry because I made you literally sob your heart out. So that's always, what I mean, it's always a real ticker at the heart when I get somebody to cry. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's probably about it. I hope everybody has a nice evening wherever you are in the world, and it's been nice. I hope I see you all again tomorrow, at 10 p.m. I know that every single day might get a bit, tiresome or whatever it is, but considering it's a Christmas book, I guess it makes a little bit more to do it all in one, session every single day. Because Christmas it doesn't last long. It's gone very quickly. So but yeah, so that's that. I want to say thanks to everybody for showing up, and I'll try have the links up for the new well, I'll have the new link for the new video up tonight. Um Thanks, Damon. Um I'll have another link up for the stream tonight, for tomorrow's live stream event, and I update the links and like the likes of the link tree and whatnot in the morning. Yeah, usually, I give some folks some time to find the live stream if they didn't get to see it live. But yeah, um, thanks, Ethan. I hope you enjoy your day. Is it? It's probably around like 10 or 11 o'clock there in Australia. Enjoy your day or your Monday. I hope you're not working too hard, or studying or whatever it is you're doing. Um, but yeah, anyway, I hope everybody has a nice evening, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. And yeah, so peace out, and I'll see you next time.